Welcome to the 2023 Global DEI Conference, a transformative platform for DEI, presented by Ludo and One Business World. Thank you for joining us for a dynamic convergence of global thought leaders, change makers, and speakers who really are gathering together to support the world in fostering equity and shape the future together. I'm now joined by Shikha Malhotra, who is the city lead for Singapore for Women and Climate and is an absolute passionate advocate for DEI. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I will now be sharing my screen. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, good morning, whichever part of the world you are in. I am Shikha Malhotra. I'm the city lead for Singapore for Women and Climate. And I'm thrilled to be here at the Global DEI Conference to talk about why women are crucial for climate action and why, as a global community, it's important for us to advance our participation in this critical mission. Over the course of the next few minutes, I will delve into how women play a pivotal role in climate action, contributing to the overall effectiveness and sustainability of environmental efforts, some of the inspiring climate projects led by women across the world, and of course, recommendations for continuous action. So without wasting any time, let's delve into it. Climate change affects everyone, but it doesn't impact everyone equally. What it means is that climate change has a greater impact on the world's most vulnerable populations, be it women, be it farmers, indigenous people, migrant workers, whether in developed or developing countries, and also further exacerbates existing inequalities in our society. Which is why recognizing and amplifying women's voices and contributions is essential for building more inclusive and effective strategies to mitigate and adapt to the challenges posed by climate change. Given the existing rules, responsibilities, and cultural norms for women, the impact can adversely last many generations. Now, some of the examples that I'd like to highlight right now are that first, in many societies, even today, women are primary caregivers. They often have a responsibility for natural resources, including water, food, and fuel. They are directly involved in managing these resources for their families, making them insightful knowledge holders. They also have traditional knowledge about environmental conservation and sustainable practices, and their expertise in topics like agroecology, natural resource management, and even traditional medicine makes them valuable contributors to innovative and sustainable solutions. In fact, I'd like to point out to a very important statistic. As per an FAO report, if women had the same access to productive resources as men, they could increase yields on their farms by 20 to 30%. This could raise total agricultural output in developing countries by about 2.5 to 4%, which could in turn reduce the number of hungry people in the world by 12 to 17%. In fact, research shows that countries with high representation of women in parliament are also more likely to ratify international environmental treaties. The second example is how in developing countries, the consequences of climate change can increase the burden for women and girls. For example, something as complicated as causing them to travel further to obtain daily supplies, and thus leaving less time for paid work and potentially exposing them to risks of personal safety. Women are also vulnerable to the impacts of climate-induced disasters such as floods, droughts, storms. They may face increased risks of violence, loss of livelihoods, and challenges related to reproductive health, hygiene in temporary shelters or displacement settings. Another example, as we are focused on agriculture, would relate to women entrepreneurs who are engaged in small-scale businesses. Such climate change impact can also cause disruptions to their livelihoods, which means that if they need to restart their life in the aftermath of these natural disasters, they need more funding, more resources, more effort, while they may find themselves addressing immediate health concerns, providing comfort, and offering support to those who are injured or traumatized. But a good silver lining is about how women have strong social networks, community connections that help them to mobilize resources, share information, and coordinate responses, contributing to the overall resilience of the communities they find themselves in. I'd now like to move on to some frameworks and global initiatives that help advance the agenda of gender equality in climate change. The most critical of that is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, which has increasingly recognized the importance of addressing gender equality and social dimension in its assessments. While the IPCC's primary focus is climate science, they also acknowledge the intersectionality of climate change, the importance of considering gender-specific vulnerabilities and opportunities. I would not like to go into the details, but just to highlight a few important points, the IPCC assessments will recognize that gender roles and inequalities influence vulnerability and adaptive capacity. It also acknowledges that climate change can affect livelihoods, particularly in sectors like agriculture. It addresses the differential health impact of climate change on women and men. As a very simple example, women may face increased health risks due to climate-related changes in distribution of vector-borne diseases, such as those transmitted by mosquitoes. Women and men may experience different challenges and vulnerabilities during forced migrations and considerations for gender-sensitive policies. That's why come into effect. And the final one is that why IPCC acknowledges this important aspect is because we need more research on the gender dimensions of climate change, understanding the differential impacts on various social groups, the role of gender in also shaping the resilience or a response to climate-related disasters. And as a continuation of the frameworks that I was talking about, we now move on to another one, which is called the Gender Action Plan. It's adopted under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. So at COP23 in November 2017, a first ever GAP was adopted, putting gender firmly on the agenda in the global climate negotiation. The GAP aims to advance the full, equal, and meaningful participation of women in all UNFCCC negotiations, promoting gender-responsive climate policy, and to also mainstream a gender perspective in all work of the convention and under the Paris Agreement. And in April of 2018, they called for submissions from observers and parties, and there were 3 key themes that were submitted by UN Women. What is UN Women? It's the United Nations entity for gender equality and the empowerment of women. Now, interestingly, the submission given by UN Women had 3 key themes, as you can see. The first theme is about the differentiated impact of climate change on women and men, with special attention paid to local community and indigenous people. To give you an explanation, the UN Women underscores the key role of data, which is disaggregated by sex, age, and any other factors, and of gender statistics in identifying policy gaps, gender analysis, gender-specific indicators in mainstreaming a gender perspective into international, national, and local climate action. Theme 2 talks about the integration of gender consideration into adaptation, mitigation, capacity building, technology, finance, etc. For example, promoting a co-benefits approach to gender equality in climate action, UN Women's flagship initiatives across the world, and national resilience programs across certain geographies. And finally, the third theme was about the policies and plans for and progress made in enhancing gender balance in national climate delegations, which will be touched upon towards the end of the presentation. In the following years, on the same Gender Action Plan, an enhanced GAP was released, which sets out the objectives and activities under 5 These areas aim to advance the knowledge and understanding of gender-responsive climate action and its coherent mainstreaming in the implementation of the UNFCCC. Now, let's move on to understanding some of the active and inspiring projects that have women at the forefront of dealing with climate change issues and impact. Beginning with Indonesia, as you can see, the climate resilience activities established in 2019. There's a grassroots accelerator by Women's Earth Alliance, which you can read about more. It serves as a catalyst for the endeavors of Indonesian women leaders dedicated to safeguarding their communities and ecosystems from environmental and climate challenges such as palm oil extraction, plastic pollution, and sea level rise. This program is essentially designed to empower leaders from various regions in Indonesia, allowing them to enhance their strategies, forge impactful alliances, and expand the reach of their grassroots environmental solutions. This accelerator, in collaboration with the Conservation International, has successfully propelled the crucial environmental initiatives of more than 50 grassroots women leaders hailing from 20 out of the 32 regions in Indonesia. And these activities include anywhere from protecting forests from degradation, revitalizing coral reefs, preserving indigenous lands and ways of life. It also identifies leaders in Indonesia actively working to shield their communities and ecosystems from environmental threats and fostering collaboration. If you'd like to know more about this accelerator, it's a 4-month program which has environmental projects under it through a Designing for Action curriculum. And it covers everywhere from the West Papua region to Flores, Sumatra, Sulawesi, and the leaders are currently joining forces to scale the influence of these initiatives. Then the next is about the clean energy transition in India. So the energy sector in India is currently undergoing transformative changes with a growing emphasis on renewable energy and sustainability. Now, women entrepreneurs in India are actively participating in renewable energy initiatives, including solar and wind projects, often on, say, decentralized solar solutions and microgrids. Now, women entrepreneurs are also engaged in providing clean cooking solutions like solar cookers, improved biomass stoves. This not only contributes to reducing indoor air pollution, but also aligns with broader sustainable development goals. They're taking leadership roles in energy startups, driving innovation and technological advancement in this sector. And especially the sectors are focused on areas like energy storage, smart grids, Internet of Things application for energy management. The third one is around the sustainable and inclusive resilient communities in Moldova. So just to give you a background, Moldova's rural women face a heightened risk of absolute poverty and increased susceptibility to the impacts of climate change, making it imperative to implement specific measures aimed at improving their access to alternative sources of income and essential support services like subsidies. So in collaboration with women groups in 30 designated communities, UNDP has helped them to enhance their expertise and capabilities in sustainable, resilient agriculture and forestry practices. 3 more crucial, inspiring projects. The next one in the food sovereignty for farmers in Central America. Extensive development poses a threat to the Mayan territories, comprising food sovereignty and displacing numerous small farms in the region. There's an organization called DESMI, DESMI, that's working towards the economic and social advancement of the indigenous Mexicans. This initiative strives to enhance the well-being of rural communities and safeguard the rights of small-scale farmers, a majority of whom are women. The project has till now empowered 200 communities with essential knowledge, including practices like preserving native seeds, soil conservation, crop diversification, and utilization of traditional fertilizers. Then moving on to South Louisiana. Over the course of century, South Louisiana has experienced extensive oil and gas extraction, resulting in a significant decline in biodiversity and a profound impact on the traditional way of life of the local indigenous communities. Through this project, they have offered a source of income for the participants, establishing sustainable food supply lines, contributing to enhanced food security in the area, cultivation of native plants and trees, development of local medicinal resources, and revitalization of traditional ecological practices. And finally, in West Africa, the agroecology sector, there's a program called We Are the Solution. It's an initiative led by rural women in West Africa, aiming to revive ancestral knowledge related to food production and land stewardship with a commitment to supplying nutritious food to those facing scarcity. So these are some of the initiatives. You can read about more initiatives on the UN website and also on the UN Women Project website. Okay. Now, given the need for women and their role in climate change and the active projects, let's now move on to how we can take more time, more effort, and more resources to advance our participation so that the outcomes are tangible. And at the same time, these initiatives and projects, they can receive more of us as we follow these themes. One of the first and one of the crucial themes that requires people from across the world to contribute is on climate resilience and adaptation programs for women, which is essentially about building and strengthening the response of women leaders to climate change by facilitating women-led dialogues, community learning, peer exchanges, and even developing communication mechanism, especially adapted to peace and security in climate disasters. For example, in India, Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research, CGIAR, has pushed for capacity building activities for women-led organizations, including women's self-help groups, like the usage of climate-smart farming. Some of the other points, as you can see, include education and capacity building, funding programs that provide education and training on climate change, sustainability and environmental conservation, and finally, advocacy and policy change. So it's critical to support organizations and initiatives that advocate for gender-responsive climate policies, not just at the local level, but also at the national and international levels. This includes funding for research, policy analysis, and advocacy efforts too. The next is, again, very important, gender-inclusive climate finance. Projects that focus on ensuring equitable access to climate finance for women, especially in developing countries, are crucial. So this could include anywhere from microfinance programs for women entrepreneurs in, say, the energy sector, the agriculture sector, helping community to access or even raise climate adaptation funds, and also adapting daily or monthly sustainability ideas across communities and helping them raise funds locally. The next one is on data collection and research, something that we touched upon in the beginning of this presentation. We need more gender disaggregated data to better understand the gender differentiated impacts of climate change, to implement gender responsive measures. In fact, one of a case studies has been published on gender integration in climate change and agricultural policies in Nepal. And it has also included participation of men and women in agriculture, in adaptation activities, and also access to goods and services as a key priority to increase women farmers' access to critical agricultural inputs. And then finally, the capacity building for women in climate leadership, initiatives that provide training and support for women to take on leadership roles in climate organizations and policy-making bodies can be particularly impactful. Funding can help mentorship programs, leadership development, and networking opportunities, and making sure that women are equitably involved in decision-making can lead to greater resilience to climate change among smallholder households, communities, and economies. And with that, I would like to close this presentation with a few final thoughts. Women's involvement in climate action is crucial for the long-term sustainability of environmental initiatives. By recognizing and harnessing the unique contributions of women, we can build a more resilient and sustainable future for generations to come. Climate action requires 100% of the population. The active participation of women, encompassing their diverse perspectives, is essential across various levels, spanning climate negotiations, boardrooms, and the realms of forests and fields. This is particularly crucial in sectors and regions significantly impacted by the destructive effects of climate change. And today, as I'm representing Women in Climate, I want to let you know that if you'd like to join us, please do join the community. We create a safe space for individuals to share best practices, ask questions, discuss ideas, and create new solutions. And everyone can work in climate, can work for climate, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what your current role is. We seek to help women understand how they can make an impact locally, nationally, internationally. Please join us if you'd like to know more. And I'd like to thank the Ludo team for giving me this opportunity. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Shikha, that was absolutely amazing and has brought a really unique and brilliant angle to our conference in terms of how we really can see this through a different lens. So thank you, incredibly powerful. I mean, you blew me away in terms of your stat of 12 to 17%, to be able to reduce the number of hungry people in the world. It blew me away. Like, that was amazing to think about how we can behave in just the way we do things and really support how women can make a difference in climate change, and to give that opportunity in those roles and for us all to take steps in action to really shift things. Power of action, that's my big thing that's resonated from you today, of that real power of action. But to think we can increase by 12 to 17%, I mean, that was really amazing. Thank you so much, Shikha. That was really powerful. I took a lot away from that.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me. And I hope that all of you are able to join the Women in Climate community and advance our participation wherever you are in the world.
Thank you so much, Shikha. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good day.